Welcome, guys, to another episode of Blockchain Banter, our Alpha Hour. We've got Paper Street Capital, or Will, who is an investor in both TradFi and Web3 and writer of the Substack Not Smart, Just Interested. And Dr. Mark Richardson, who is the project lead at Bancor and CarbonDeFi. Thank you guys for joining, and thanks to the listeners as well.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so really quickly, did you guys, was it just this morning that the Ben Armstrong and BitBoy crypto news came out? Did you catch wind of that?
I saw that last night, and I've been using an app on top of X. It's called like Calm Twitter. So it hides all of the trending topics and all this for a long time. So I kind of wish I went back to that because I saw that and I was like, I don't need to know about this. But it seems like as far as I know, it seems like an internal dispute. I have no idea, but not to pick any fights, but not a huge loss. I think it's just part of I don't know, kind of this is what the space needs to go through, this kind of, cleansing of the main characters, I guess. So maybe this is just that next step.
You think?
Yeah, I got to back you up on that with the, so yeah, Jen told me she wanted to talk about it. I haven't really paid any attention to it because I don't like, I don't want to sound cavalier, but I don't think I really care about it or that it matters very much. And maybe, maybe that's naive. Obviously, Ben Armstrong and the organization that I don't know, like, was he the leader? Like, this is kind of confusing. I find it a very strange circumstance because I'm not sure what the value of that company is without its lead influencer, but whatever. I don't think that it matters very much to the space. For a long time, I think Armstrong has been sort of a weird sort of influence. I remember the day after the Terra Luna collapse, for example, he released this really bizarre video claiming that he somehow precipitated its collapse and it was like a revenge stunt against SBF Alameda. Like, I think that he's just like, he's a pretender in the, in every way. Like, I do think that he has this, I don't know, like maybe, I don't know. I don't know exactly what it is. Like, I'm sure some people would argue that he is just a really good publicist and he knows how to get attention and eyeballs and that kind of thing. But part of me thinks that he really is just that weird, sort of awkward, type of guy that's sort of, kind of insecure and wants to be more important than he is or something. But, in terms of his actual influence over the space, I think it's pretty minor, right? If we get a few less YouTube videos, I don't think that that's tragic.
That's a great way to put it. As you're saying all that and kind of wrapping it up, and I'm not trying to pick fights with anybody who really enjoys them, but but here we go. I just think it's a net positive that we have less influencers and just, I don't know, it sounds cliche, but just more builders. Like, let's get to work. And this kind of phase is kind of echoes of 2020, 2021, where the space is flooded with it. It just kind of, it's hard to, in my eyes, to bring in more users when this is the face. If you go on YouTube and you just see all these crazy YouTube videos of, what's going to 100x and all this shit. And it's just like, I'm not convinced. Like, I'm convinced this is a net positive.
Right.
And it could just be the tide. This is that the winter really taking hold, and it's like, okay, this just feels like a natural progression of that. And I think we're probably better off, and getting more serious, I don't know if journalists is the right word, but just kind of followers of information and purveyors of information, of filters and curators. This is not where I go. Like, and it sounds like everyone's on the same page of, I don't think I've ever watched a video of his. I was aware of him because it was just, it was so loud. And
yeah, I think you've got, like, in the influencer realm, you've kind of got the tabloids, and you've got like the Wall Street journals, and he's very much on that tabloid side. And so like if the Wall Street Journal, for example, was to decide, like, if something terrible was to happen there, I would actually think that that would have like a tremendous impact on the financial world. Like there are publications, sources of information that are so thoroughly entwined with the way that the industry actually operates that it's very difficult to separate them. But then there's also like publications that are mostly for entertainment value, which is, like that's, I'm not criticizing something being there for entertainment's sake, but this is definitely how I categorize Ben Armstrong, right? He could be behind the scenes like an absolute gentleman and have a very deep understanding of blockchain and blockchain products and stuff, and then have this kind of persona or character, which I've often suspected is the case for a lot of these influencers, that he kind of, when he gets up and goes to work, he kind of becomes this person, almost like an actor, and kind of, performs for his audience who are happy to consume that media. And as a business model, that's really great. Like, this idea of it reminds me a little bit of professional wrestling in a way.
Great way to put it. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they really become the character and kind of live it out and that kind of thing. But it really is for the sake of attention and entertainment. It's not really a part of the industry.
And to Jen's credit, like what she's been doing with all these blockchain banners, like I've learned a tremendous amount. And I'm not talking about mine. Like, I mean, of me personally, I mean, just being a part of this and listening, multiple days a week, this feels like the getting to the heart of the matter of really getting very bright and intelligent people together. I'm excluding myself, and discussing issues that are really pertinent, and it's from people who are on the ground, and it's like, this is good. This feels like a just right in line with the ethos of crypto and the technology we find ourselves in. Is like these channels that didn't exist several years ago. It's like, well, now you have a technology that everyone can just jump on a call and talk, and you're talking to people like you would never have access to or would never have crossed each other. And it's just like, this is really interesting and this is great. I really do. I love everything that the blockchain banners have become, like, and it brings together a lot of interesting people, and it just makes all these connections. And so, just to, I didn't want to feel like I'm tagging Jen for bringing up the topic of Armstrong, but it's actually a good way to contrast everything. Just like you said, Mark, that's exactly right. There's entertainment value, but from a customer standpoint of a consumer, rather, understand what you're accomplishing by, if you choose to watch them or watch anything else, like, what are you watching it for? Because if you're going to Ben for quality information, it's like, that's not what he's offering. And it's hard to tell what motivations of people. Like, I have no idea. I'm not trying to read anyone's mind, but it's just that is entertainment. If you treat it as such, like, have fun, man. Just I feel sorry for people who, not feel sorry, but I'd caution those who go in thinking, I'm going to buy what he recommends and I'm going to learn everything from him. It's like, it is, the WDE is a great analogy there. It's like, just be careful.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for the nice things that you said about blockchain banter. And you shouldn't exclude yourself in them. I understand why you did, but you shouldn't. I'll give you a little bit more on why I actually wanted to speak to this. I want to give Ceazor, I'm glad that you were able to join us. Thanks for jumping up here. I want to hear what you have to say really quickly. Well, not really quickly. Take your time.
Yeah, I'm not too quick when it comes, once I open my mouth. Yeah, I'm kind of in the special location of being what people would consider an influencer, right? To some extent. I'm definitely not on the same wavelength as Benny there, but I'm definitely can speak from that side of the fence somewhat, right? when one of the things you just said, Paper Street, that said like, oh, I think there should be more builders than influencers. This is kind of impossible. Like, there's influencing's a different set of skill sets. There's people who are good at it. There's people who are not so good at it, and it's much easier than building. So there's a lot more people who are like, oh, I can be an influencer. I can do that. But the problem comes from how they influence. I feel like if they do something like this, where they research projects and they just unbiasedly explain what they are. Like, this is kind of what I do. Like, I don't even care who's the, like, I'll just look at something that I haven't seen before and I'll just explain it. I feel that that's pretty good, right? Like, it doesn't, like, I'm obviously not saying buy this coin, check out this price and stuff like that. And then there's influencers that like hitch themselves to a certain project or team, right? And these are also quite valuable too, because like you could have two projects that are just comparably as good, and one is just wrecking the other in TVL use case and stuff like that. And it all comes from the influencers. So I feel like the influencers really make a big difference on the outcome of these projects. And it's way better if influencers are like helping quality projects to grow and create use case than they are like, you know, shilling their own meme coin or, you know, just, you know, doing NFT marketing and stuff like this. So I think there's a lot of use cases, a lot of good, it's a huge grayscale, right? Of just like, just from terrible to as good as possible. And like, maybe we could do without it. Like you don't see a lot of influencers shilling like, you know, like the banks and stuff like that, or Visa and stuff like that. But, you know, maybe we still need it because we're still quite young, right?
Yeah, that's true, and that's actually a lot of good points. To pay a compliment your way, I do when and this is just how I think of the term influencer. Like, I'll just take you, Ceazor. I understand your point of you consider yourself that. Your content is so dense and like so well presented. I've learned so much from your videos. It's like, so when I think it's almost like you're an educator. And I'm not trying to downplay like how you consider yourself, but it's just that you add a tremendous amount to space, and that's really what I would rather see is more people like you. When I think of influencer, like you said, there's this scale of, you know, you just that's a good way to think about it. Actually, it's just this scale of how much you add and what you're really doing and objectives. But boy, it really just comes down to like your personal curation on what you consume and being aware of what you consume. And I think Ceazor channel is one of those like that adds a tremendous amount of value, personal value to me, but and I'm sure millions of others. And but to that end, where do y'all? I'm really interested to hear this. Like, where do y'all find is the best sources of information? Not necessarily alpha, just kind of like, you know, whether they're Twitter users or channels or whatnot. Like, what's kind of your go-to?
What is Caesar's specifically? Caesar, I'll let you go ahead. I saw you.
Or just anybody.
Yeah, I'll go first on this. This is a tough one. Like like for me, I have this thing I call it the shill list, which is probably the worst name for it, but I call it the shill list, and it's basically like any project can just go put their information in my shill list, and it'll be on my list of to read, basically. And I just every day when I want to make a video, I just go in there, choose the next one on the list, read the docs, and if I read the docs, unless it's an obvious like just blatant fork with like a tiny like change or nothing, then I just make a video on it. So this is kind of how I do it, but this doesn't make me money. So it's not really alpha. Like, it could make me money because I might find something there that is like, that's gonna, you know, it's gonna take off and I can make money somehow. Maybe I use the product, which I used to say that a lot. I used to tell people in my videos, like, don't buy the token, use the product. Don't buy the token, use the product. But like, when you buy the token, then you do the PvP game and you can make money, right? So like, a lot of people, maybe they didn't like it, or do it that way. But it's like, to get alpha, it depends on the goal of that alpha. Like, I'm looking for products that I want to use, whereas most people are looking for tokens that are going to blast off, right? And they can make money off like price action. So it's hard to find price action, because basically you need to be in one of these alpha groups that like have some large money influencers that are going to pump the token a bit and create FOMO. And then once they create FOMO, then everyone else tries to get on the wave. And then, it's a zero sum at that point, right? So yeah, that's where I stand for alpha. And thanks again for all the nice words.
I think this comes back to what we were talking about maybe, I want to say maybe 2 weeks ago, with what you even consider alpha. And I know it was one of our crypto trading calls, trading crypto calls, where it was, once you see it on your timeline, or once you actually start hearing about it, is it even alpha anymore? Ceazor, you're saying it's these alpha groups where they, all of a sudden talk it up, and it's almost like then you're that sort of exit liquidity, right? But something I wanted to ask you, with Ben Armstrong, the reason I brought that up is because it's not just the YouTubes and the Twitter presence, right? He's actually been a speaker and things at different conferences. He's been on different panels. He's been included in these major events, or what I would consider to be major events. So do you think this is going to, as an influencer, right? Do you think this is going to affect those that are looking to build that sort of following? Do you think we'll start seeing more of that educational content that I know so many people would really like to see? Was that following because it was strictly entertainment? Do you think that they'll still go and build themselves that sort of platform that he has, considering what has become of it?
One of the things, wasn't he like offered a job at NMSBC or whatever the hell that is, like one of those major TV channels?
Was he really?
Yeah, there's something. I remember him talking about having some major like offering like that. I can't remember. Maybe he didn't take it. Maybe the money wasn't enough or whatever.
Top signal.
But one of the things that like kind of gets me is like, like if I put out a video, I'll spend a couple hours, I'll do my research, I'll read my docs, I do all my planning, do my video, and it gets like a couple hundred views. And then he pulls out some just loud, screamy crap and gets like 2.5 million views or something like that. So it's really hard for like someone to do a YouTube channel and try to compete with him and use him as like as a goal. I want to get there, because it's really hard to get there. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's what with the position he's in is not something that you can just get just by like, throwing up a couple videos. So he's put in the work. It's not really value add work, but it is work and time and effort. And he does have first mover advantage. He's been here for a long time, right? So I think it's pretty hard for people to kind of try to take away that championship belt, if you will, right?
I think people like Ben would have been pretty successful in any sphere of influence. Like, it's probably like, it might just be by happenstance that he kind of ended up, becoming such a significant part of the media engine surrounding cryptocurrency. I think he would have been equally at home, doing, I don't know, like movie or game reviews or something. Like, it's interesting that this, collapse, or the fact that Ben is being dismissed is happening sort of now, because I've noticed that there are actually a handful of like long-standing YouTube channels, not necessarily associated with crypto, that are all sort of going through a similar decline. There's the company that's built up around Linus Tech Tips. Do you guys know who I'm talking about? It's like a
I know you're talking
hardware. Yeah, hardware like reviews and this kind of thing. And they've also gone through a similar process, right? Where just, I think, not not even a year ago. They were offered, I think, somewhere in the vicinity of upwards of $100 million for the brand to be absorbed into another company, and they refused it. And today they're also in this period of like struggling to reorganize and trying to excise toxic influences from inside their organization and so on. And like that's the correct parallel, I think. BitBoy Crypto is an organization, it's a business, and Ben Armstrong is the face of that business. But its product is exactly what Ceazor was talking about, right? It is YouTube traction. In a way, their goal is to bring as many people to videos as possible, so that they're more attractive to advertisers and so on. So yeah, I don't think that I think that he could have chosen any one of 100 different disciplines to be an influencer in. And with his kind of with his stage presence and gravitas and the commitment of the people that he's working with, like, they're very clean cut videos. He definitely has an aesthetic that's worked. And I think that it would have worked in literally any discipline. It didn't have to be cryptocurrency. It could have been anything.
Yeah, I agree with this completely. Like, if you look at Mr. Beast, like, what kind of value add does he actually, like, he is, being a little altruistic with his money and apparently giving donations and stuff like that, is so I've heard. But like, his actual videos, they're for the most part nonsense as far as I've seen. I could be wrong. But like, it's definitely not like, like, there's a YouTube channel that I've watched for upwards 10 years or something, and it's called Veritasium. And it's like a science-based YouTube channel that's just constant value add. Like, whenever you watch a video there, you learn something about the real world. But when you watch like the stuff my kids put on YouTube sometimes, I'm just like, what is this? This guy, it's just a teenager yelling in like a pool filled with slime. Like, what is this? And that gets clicks, and that gets revenue, and it gets ad fees, it gets sponsorships, it gets money, right? Because it keeps attention of people who want something simple and easy and entertaining.
It is good to think through, to both your points, of like, what's the incentive of the creator, and what are they optimizing for? And it's hard to look through that and then disentangle where the line of entertainment is. But it's something I think a bear market brings out. Just like, okay, well, why did you decide to make this outlandish video? Speaking of, like, let's just stick on the topic of Ben, because there's other incentives that you're just not aware of. Maybe he has a holding of, or getting paid by so and so, and fine, that's part of the business model. But it is just really being careful of, like, you personally of watching that. It's like, what are you aiming to get out of it? And so, like, that science channel, like, that just sounds interesting. And but on anything dealing with, call it investable assets, whether it's just pick your, you got the real estate guys on YouTube that are obnoxious, and TikTok. And so it's across the board. It's not exclusively to crypto. There's a lot of cross incentives, and also just like looking at the scope of Ben's trajectory. It's like, that's just years of trial and error, and then being rewarded for something and taking that path. And then, it just manifests into 10 years later, and he's this character. And it's not obvious that that was his choice. Meaning, that was just all these incentives pushing his way. Like, he gets a big spike in views doing some crazy stunt. It's like, well, he's going to do that again. And so and we're all privy to this, like, as human beings, like, we respond to incentives. So it's a wild world out there, but man, like, it just goes back to curation. Like, how do you find the good sources of information, stick with it, and how do you decide what's good and what's just non-nutritious?
Ceazor, go ahead.
Yeah, one of the the things that I thought about as well while you're speaking there was like maybe it's because a lot like the majority of the people who probably watch his channel are people that don't really actually believe in crypto. So they're more like, oh, one shitcoin's another shitcoin. You know, like fucking Bencoin is the same thing as ETH coin to me. So I'm just gonna do whatever pumps as quick as possible, and whatever he talks about will pump because people will just try to, even the people who know better will still sometimes try to ride his wave, right? So maybe that's the problem, is that people are just painting the picture of, you know, crypto as all shit coins, and therefore I'll just play along with Ben's shitcoin game, right? And try to make some money off it and kind of consider it like gambling. That might be a source of reasoning there.
So I want to, oh, go ahead. You guys both unmuted. Will and Mark.
Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, I think to Will's question, or to try and answer Will's question, I think you know it when you find it. There are journalists and there are jesters, and when you are if you were trolling YouTube looking for something to interest you, right, where you might want to learn something or become fascinated by something. I don't think that if you found a BitBoy crypto video that you would necessarily find that very nourishing. Whereas if you found like a Coin Bureau video, the tone is very different. The sources are posted. The quality of the conversation is quite different. And so in a way, it's the same. Like, you're asking the same question that I think that you're kind of asking yourself every day when you decide who it is that you want to converse with about different things. Like, if you're at the bar and some guy's telling you about, the fact that fluoridation in the water is a plot for the CIA to like mind control you or something, like you're perfectly able to sort of gauge the reliability of that information on your own. And it's true that there are some lies that can be extremely well crafted and presented in such a way that it's difficult to discern it. But I think in general, you kind of just know good information when you hear it.
Will, did you want to add something to that before I continue?
No, that's a great way to wrap that up. Like, that's it is just kind of venturing out there, and I just think over time, it just takes a little time to find those good sources, and and you see how the information they present maybe 2 years ago, like how did that pan out, or how not really right or wrong, but just kind of the process and whatnot. To put a bow on everything, one thing that's kind of interesting is if you look at all the kind of craziness, because you're never going to stop it. You're never going to, I wouldn't want to anyway, of just like all the YouTube videos and all this. It presents a path towards like really good investment opportunities because there's so much noise. If you think everything was curated and everything was great, then all that information would find the whole audience, and then like all the opportunities would be closed. So to that end, like there's that natural part of it. Like, there's going to be the big circus and WWE side of it, and it's like, good. You just got to get good at trying to find the signal from the noise.
Go ahead, Ceazor.
One of the things I would suggest you don't do, which I've done in the past, and sometimes I do these like just follow recommendation things where I just, like on Twitter, I'll just follow every single thing I'm recommended. Everyone who posts like under me, everyone who kind of has anything to say, I'll just follow. And then now my like Twitter is like full of these stupid memes like, oh, choose one of these 4 things that you would lose for life, like little crap like that. And it's really hard to not like I want to unfollow them, but at the same time, I just kind of leave it and I just scroll past it. I don't take the time to unfollow it. So then my feed gets full of just garbage, like just lots of like stupid memes and NFT like shills and stuff like this. So I would say that like try not to just be like super like free with who you follow on crypto Twitter, especially if you're not like you don't have Twitter Blue or whatever it's called now, because then you don't have very many tweets you can see, and you want them to be quality instead of just crap.
I actually pinned to the top my little join us when we started the call, or however long after. But since we're talking about quality follows and things, if any of the listeners, have those journalists that they follow, I'm kind of going with Mark's playing on his journalists versus jesters. Please tag them underneath that announcement, because I personally would love to, see who it is that you're recommending. We spoke about Ceazor. There are some influencers or some personalities or journalists, as we can call them, educators, content creators that create amazing content. And I would love to personally expose myself to more of them. So if there are those quality follows that you would recommend, put them under there, tag them under there so that we can check them out. I wanted to ask about this for another reason. We spoke about Friend Tech, and I don't want to beat a dead horse, right? But we spoke about them on a couple of calls, and seeing what's going on right now. Ceazor, you mentioned, the difference when you're shilling your own meme coin or something of that sort. Is Friend Tech, do you see this as a sort of platform now that might draw unwanted attention to different personalities or influencers, especially considering it does involve a coin of their own now?
Yeah, let me speak on this because I've done like since I came back from vacation, I opened that can of worms and I kind of tried to play with it a little bit. I'm part of this founding team for this DEX called Velocimeter. It's launched on Base. They launched on Base, and that's pretty heavy on what's going on Base right now. Is these keys? So the keys are able to be wrapped into ERC20 now. So the tech, to explain the tech simply, like you would go to the wrapper and the wrapper would buy the key for you, hold the key, and then mint you an ERC20 on behalf of you. You can't wrap the keys you already bought with these wrappers, okay? So you just show up with ETH, send the ETH to it, get the ERC20, and then you can take this ERC20 to like liquidity pools for liquidity mining and stuff like that. So I went ahead and I created my own key so that I could go through the whole process, as well as put it on my DEX, get some options tokens going for it, and like it's pretty complicated. So I've got some videos if you want to check it out, and I did a Twitter thread the other day if you really want to find out what it's doing. But I've been trying to use the DApp, trying to use the app to see like what's the point of this thing, like now that I've got my keys out there, there's some definitely bots buying my keys. There are some people trying to play the bot and trying to trade the keys. I'm making like a ridiculous amount of ETH for the amount of effort that I've put in. It's just stupid, right? Like I've given no value, but I've gotten like 0.17 ETH or something like that, like on the thing. So I can totally see how this thing would be super appealing to someone who has high influence, who could say, hey, I got a key, buy my key. And then everybody would be like, oh, like his keys are going to pump, I'm buying his keys, right? And it just becomes like a popularity pump, right? And I don't think that's maybe it's not a terrible thing. Like it's definitely way better if he's promoting tech that is cool and new and helpful, right? And the DApp itself, I can't really figure out how the DApp brings value. One of my friends told me that he's in a group. He bought the keys of some girl. She's very good at finding meme coins that are gonna pump. So he's in there. So it's an alpha group for, pump and dump meme coins, right? So that has some utility, some value, perhaps, but like I don't understand the difference between that. Like for me, I can send a message, they can message me, but they can't talk to each other. So I can't just follow other people's conversations, whereas I could do that on Telegram or Discord. So, but at the same time, there's a lot of money, and people, whenever there's money, people will build tech around it. Tech will develop, and usually, for the most case, right, there will be some innovation. So I'm kind of on the fence whether or not it's gonna be a value add to our industry or not.
Do you see it being somewhat of a I won't say instigator, right? But to the sort of situation that Ben Armstrong is finding himself in right now? Because we see others coming in from outside of the industry, that are recognizing something that blockchain is offering, which is great. But then we had this going on in the last, 24 hours.
Can someone TLDR what happened to Ben? Because like last I heard, he was just doing his shit. Like what happened to him? Did he get a lawsuit or something?
I think that was a while ago. Didn't he get a lawsuit a while ago? Basically, he just got dropped. Mark was saying it was a really odd sort of situation, and I actually agree, but maybe Mark, you wouldn't mind speaking to it a little bit.
Yeah, so like just before the spaces, I just made sure that I was kind of up to date on like what's happened. And the TLDR is I don't think anyone knows. Well, all we know is that there was there was an email and an announcement, I guess, to either investors in the company or whatever that was leaked that the media company for which Ben Armstrong is the face of has asked him to no longer they basically don't require his services anymore. He's been asked to leave.
So,
So he got jacked from his own YouTube channel? That's crazy.
Yeah, well, I guess it's not his YouTube channel. But yeah, this is like one of the things that I found so surprising is that I thought that he kind of was the company, but maybe that was it could be that I was mistaken in that assumption. But yeah, we'll wait and see. I also I don't think that a lot of I've heard Ben get like a lot of hate over the years. And I think, I'll say it, I'll reiterate what I said before, which is that I think that he is a very successful entertainer. And that if you have a look at, the type of content that he's put out, like strictly for entertainment's sake, then there's, I don't think there's any reason for anyone to be particularly upset with him. For the friend tech stuff, it's a little bit different because you are sort of actively inviting people to, to take a financial position in your, in your business, which, depending on which regulatory agency you speak to, they may have very strong opinions about whether or not that's an appropriate thing to do. So yeah, I mean, you could say the same thing about Ben Armstrong. I'm sure that people have leveled these kinds of arguments against him already because he was invested in projects or that he did, participate in effective pump and dump schemes and these kinds of things. And whatever, I understand all of that. But yeah, I think that the parallel between what's happening with Ben and whatever lawsuits he may or may not be involved in, I think we need to make sure that we sort of delineate a successful YouTube channel from building a business in blockchain and on friend tech. I think these are very different things.
That's a great point. I just pulled just kind of what was the latest news. Kind of makes you feel bad, but looks like you're right. He was fired from what was a company, BitBoy Crypto. So he was just like exactly your point. He was the on-air talent. But it looks like potentially some substance abuse issues, which I'm very sympathetic to. And so I'm sorry to hear him going through that. Just want to say that too. Like the guy's a person, and as much as I'll just go back to what I said at the very beginning. As much as I'm like, well, these guys probably need to go. Like, still, it's still a guy with a family and going through a hard time. So, wish him the best. But I just felt like that just came out like 5 minutes ago. So, just wanted to add that to it.
If I were to guess, I would say he probably started the YouTube channel got success. Somebody came along and said, hey, listen, we want to invest in you. We want to buy the rights to your channel. We'll give you this big bag of coin. You want it? And they say, just keep going. Here's your contract. They bought him out. They own it. And then maybe they were bought out by somebody who's a little bit more conservative. Like, I'm just going to throw a name like BlackRock or something, you know, something of that nature, where they're just like, yeah, we want to take this thing over and we want him to stop like making crypto sound like a big scam. There could be, that could be like an actual like good thing or a bad thing.
There's an aspect to what you're saying, Ceazor, and I think you know, it may be something that you are unusually well qualified to comment on of everyone on this call. But I've also heard like over the years that the YouTube like demonetization policy and ad revenue algorithms and things have like been very like have become increasingly punishing towards you know, YouTube channels that are like cryptocurrency leaning. And so it could just be that the business wasn't maybe not even that profitable anymore. Like, I'm not even sure, right? Like, it could, I'm just wondering if you've seen like you know, obviously it's going to dip and dive with the market overall. But have you found that, you know, different iterations of the YouTube algorithm kind of correspond to things that are happening in current affairs, like the indictments or the alleged indictments against CZ and this kind of thing, you know, the drama around Gary Gensler and the SEC? Like, do you think that it's possible that YouTube is just, you know, making it that it just might not be a very fruitful business endeavor anymore?
Well, it's a bit hard for me to say because I don't care about the algorithm. My channel is not like I've at most I've ever think in 1 month I've made an ad revenue is like $120. I average like $30 or $20 or $15 a month in ad revenue. So it's just like, it's not worth my time to really dig into the algorithm and try to make sure to optimize it and stuff like that, right? So I can't really say, but I can definitely say that the bear market took me from $120 a month to $30 a month, right, in ad revenue. My views are way down. So there's definitely probably that on him on a much larger scale. So like if he was pulling in like, I don't know, some $80,000 a month, and now he's pulling in $7,000 a month, you know, some big company who owns him is definitely going to be looking at, oh, is this worth our effort? We got to pay all the salary for all his tech guys, all his research guys, all his, you know, the guys who talk to get the coins and, you know, the all of his shillers. And he must have a team of people who are talking to projects to get sponsorships and stuff to get on the channel and stuff, right? I doubt he's doing all that himself, right? So yeah, I wouldn't doubt it. I would definitely, but like I said, I don't know. I don't research the algorithm because I consider my channel like my library. Like if I want to know what fucking Carbon does, I just watch my video and then I remember, right? So it's easier than reading everything. So I'm not really trying to use it to make money, and maybe that's why.
I think you said
Yeah.
so. Hey, Brad. Glad you're
Hey.
able to join us. I know it's a little late in the call, but you've kind of caught on to what we were talking about. Would love to hear your input.
Well, look, I think a lot of his revenue came from sponsorships and affiliate programs. I think he made a ton of money on FTX and Binance and from click-throughs and people signing up and taking fees on an ongoing basis. I think he makes a lot of money from direct sponsors that he mentions in the show. And he, you know, look, I think a lot of YouTubers don't count solely on YouTube for their revenue stream because it's just not enough there, like Ceazor was talking about. I'm looking at the announcement, and I think you're right, Ceazor, about the structure of it. It said, yesterday, BJ Investment Holdings, the parent company of Hit Network, took decisive legal action removing Ben Armstrong from the company and specifically the BitBoy crypto brand. This difficult decision is a culmination of a prolonged effort to help Ben during his relapse into substance abuse, as well as reconcile the emotional, physical, and financial damage he's done to the employees of Hit Network and the BitBoy crypto community. The Bit Squad deserves better, and we're going to get through this together. We wish him the best and regret that it has come to this and are hopeful for the future of BitBoy crypto. All that sounds great, and they have a lot of subscribers, but look, I was no fan of the guy, and think that he did a lot of things that bordered on irresponsible just in the world of crypto. But I don't see how they sustain that brand without him. I don't know that there were any other personalities on the shows that attracted people to it. And for better or worse, their millions of views were coming because I think people liked the way he did things. I think it's I think it's going to be real interesting to see if they can make that thing survive. I wouldn't count on it.
So, Brad, do you see more of this coming because we're losing that sort of personality, or do you see maybe less because we're losing that personality?
More what?
More of, you said that you don't really see anybody who can replace that, not necessarily speaking to that company specifically, but more so speaking to that sort of personality type that people seem to be drawn to.
Yeah, I hope we have a lot less of it. What sucks with people like Ben and their success is that often becomes the first thing people see when they come into this space. And so it sets a framework for behavior here that I think is a detriment to everything we're trying to do. So for me, I hope it means a lot less of those types of personalities, but I'm not holding my breath because crypto has been full of those types of personalities for a very long time. So.
Yeah, and just to be clear, and maybe I should have said this in the beginning, it's, I'm speaking about Ben and what's going on at the moment, but I'm more so speaking to the different types of content and ways that we can influence the actual industry and the people that are here. I think it's more of that. It's the approaches that we can take and then the result of those approaches that we see happen. We are almost at the top of the hour. About 10 minutes left. We can call it a little bit early unless you guys have anything you want to specifically speak to. Or if any of our listeners want to join us up here also. We've got a little bit of time.
If I could shield my own stuff real quick, I'm cross posting. Like if I write something on Substack, I'm testing out X. It's like if you have the whatever X premium, I don't remember what it's called. You get like this huge character bump. So I'm going to be posting, if you see some like very long tweets from me, that's what that is. Just if it's not your thing, pass over it. But if you enjoy it, give me a like. Let me know what you think.
Yeah, I'll speak on that. This is something that bothers me a lot. Like a lot of the people who I follow have converted to this long form thing. And I feel like there was this, when I was doing my master's, I read some article, it was in some sort of like learning how to like write academic work and stuff like that. And it was like this professor wrote an email to his friend and he apologized and said, "I'm sorry, but I didn't have the time to reduce the word count on this," and sent it through. So I feel like Twitter, I really miss the fact that Twitter was tweets and that you had to say what you had to say in that small amount of characters. Even when they increased it, it was still small enough. So like, I'm a big fan of like, oh, here's the juice, like here's the abstract. And if you want to know everything else, check my Substack. But I'm not sure whether or not that is mass appealing. People might want to be like, I don't want to click through to the Substack. Just let me read it here. So for most people, I might be the absurdity. I might be the strange one, the outlier. But that's kind of how I feel about these long form tweets.
Well, what's interesting is Is Twitter still blocking links to Substack out of Twitter? Because I think the whole goal behind this was to take on Substack. And when Substack created a competitor, Musk was blocking all outbound links to Substack because they had created a competitor. So I think some folks are trying to figure out the best balance between being able to publish and reach the audience that is on Twitter versus because they can't get people out of Twitter onto their Substack. But I'm not sure if they're still blocking that or not.
That's 100%. That's the whole reason I'm doing this. It went from to Caesar's point, like I would just give a, hey, I just wrote a new piece, check it out, to that would get it would get 0 views. If I put any kind of Substack link up, it would become invisible. So I was like, okay, how do I? So I tried TLDRs. It wasn't. I don't know. It just as maybe I'm used to writing long form. So this is just an experiment. And again, if you don't like it, you could skip over it, and it won't hurt my feelings.
As Ceazor, like you make YouTube videos, and I'm seeing more of these videos that are popping up on Twitter now because you can do that, right? You can record and you can put a video up on Twitter. And I mean, I don't know what the time frame is that you're limited to, but I'm definitely seeing more of this sort of content also on my feed. Have you noticed that same thing, Ceazor? Have you considered doing that, considering like the sort of content that you create?
I haven't even like upgraded my Twitter. I still have the most basic Twitter. I haven't paid the $6, $8, whatever it is. So like I would have to do that. And then I don't know, maybe I should. Because like maybe that might be a reason why my view counts are down, because that's my main sharing platform. Like I make the Twitter or make the YouTube, subscribers might watch, but then I also share on Twitter. So it might be the case that Twitter is actually, ghosting or what is it called? Ghost banning? Ghosting my tweets that have YouTube video links in them.
The algorithm specifically says actual tweets with outbound links are penalized no matter where they're going. And if you're not a Twitter Blue subscriber, you also get far less engagement. You get higher engagement, higher placement if you're a Twitter Blue subscriber for your tweets. I will tell you, my engagement has dropped off a cliff, and I'm assuming I'm being penalized for the "don't criticize Elon" algorithm piece, but I'm not sure. But I just keep going, and whatever happens, happens.
I went ahead, Will, and I pinned that to the top. I absolutely love your Substack. And it's actually really nice that it's going to be up here. Ceazor, I know you said you're not a fan of that long form, but I know personally I would much prefer to see this on my feed than a lot of the sorts of videos and, you know, tweets that are being recommended to me at the moment. So I definitely look forward to reading that one, Will. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Thank you to all of the listeners. Again, if you have those quality follows that you can recommend us, please do, because I want to, again, expose myself to more of them. I think as we all should, right? So thank you for joining us, and we will see you next Monday.